What's going on, everybody? It's Brayand Trippe. I am here in beautiful Birmingham, Alabama. I'm so glad you decided to join us today for another episode of the Real Estate Investing Live podcast. We interview the very best real estate investors, entrepreneurs, and business leaders all throughout this country. Today, we have a very special guest that I am excited to get to know and talk to, my friend, Mr. Brayand Ponciano, otherwise known as BP. We'll be referring to him as BP the rest of the show. How's it going today, my friend?
It is going fabulous. Today has been a very trying day. This morning has been a very trying morning. Nonetheless, I believe that we make our own reality. So I wasn't gonna let this flat tire and the fact that I got a flat tire and I went to go change the spare and I found out that I didn't even have a lug nut thing or a jack for the car. So I had to leave my car somewhere, get an Uber back here to make it back on time for the interview. After I'm done with this, and I'll figure out what the hell I'm doing with my car. Nonetheless, though, I came to a realization that I get to write my own movie. I get to write my own script. And I was not going to let that one little thing disrupt my whole day. So I'm doing fabulous.
That's awesome. And I want to put out a little warning to our listeners. You got a little tiny itty bitty morsel of it here a second ago, but this show may be rated mature, M for mature audiences. So I want you to be aware there may be a little bit of profanity here and there. So I want to say that up front. But BB, tell people who you are for the folks that never heard of you before. Who are you and what do you do in real estate specifically?
So as he said, my name is Brayand Ponciano. I go by BP. You guys can find me on Instagram at Cashflow Creator. I'm very open about my life. I post the stories all the time. So you get to see everything about me. Who I am is I'm a father. I'm a philanthropist. I'm a businessman. I'm somebody that grew up very, very poor. My parents are from Guatemala. They both immigrated from Guatemala, born and raised there. Actually, more than half of my family is still in Guatemala. So we grew up in the ghettos of LA. English was not my first language. Drugs, gangs, prostitution. Basically, a 90s West Coast rap album was the reality of my life to an extent.
Wow.
Luckily for me, I was still fairly young at that point, so I didn't really get involved too much with the gangs, too much with the drugs, too much with all that. But all of that was a hardcore reality for me in my life. At some point, I think we were about 14, 15 when my parents moved us out to Phoenix, Arizona. One of the best things that ever happened to me because I probably would have ended down that road that I just mentioned. So what it allowed for me to do was it looked at other opportunities, other possibilities. And I kept on staying up late at night and I kept on seeing these infomercials. Carlton Sheets, buy no money down, no credit. You can buy a house, you can fix a house, you can sell a house. And that always intrigued me. Real estate always intrigued me. My whole time growing up, as I said, my parents were immigrants. Everybody around us was broke. Everybody at our church was broke. All of our neighbors were broke. All of their friends were broke. With the one exception of this guy, Byron, who was in sales, and his mother was a real estate agent. And I just remember that one time we got a chance to go to Byron's mom's house. I must have been about like 10 years old or so at that point. And I remember driving into this house and she lived in a gated community and she had a pool. I thought she was fucking rich. Like I thought she was balling beyond balling because once again, I grew up poor. Hell, we were lucky to go to the community pool. Like it wasn't, we were hoping that the community pool was actually fixed that year for us to be able to go. And even then it cost a few bucks to get in. So that pretty much meant that we weren't going to get in. And she was in real estate. So I always had an inclination for real estate. I started doing, initially I thought I needed to be a realtor just like most people. Most people have very linear thinking and I was the same way. So I thought that the only way that I can get into real estate was to be a realtor. Through there, I found out about wholesaling. Once I found out that I could literally make up money by signing a contract and assigning it to somebody else. And I'm like, nobody's going to arrest me. This is not illegal. Like, I don't need a license for this. Oh my God. That first $5,000 check changed my life. And then from there, I've just continued moving up. So as I was mentioning to you before we started the show, I've been wholesaling. I did wholesale for about 5-6 years. Then I moved into fixing and flipping for about another 4 or 5 years. And then I moved into multifamily investing, which I'm currently doing, creating cash flow. So we're doing multifamily investing, and then we've also transitioned into nodes because as much as I like multifamily investing and it is passive income, it's not as passive as I particularly want it to be. So I've been looking at notes.
Fascinating story. I want to go back to that, BP. I want to go back to your childhood and the ghettos of LA. And you said everyone around you was broke.
Yes.
So I'm here in Birmingham, and I'm sure there are a lot of inner cities and a lot of cities all over the country where there are kids who are currently in situations that you were in.
Mm-hmm.
How did you get out?
I tell people that I was upper lower class. And the reason why I was upper lower class was because I actually had my mom and my dad. What the hell?
That's your mom right there.
Yeah, right. So one of the benefits that I received from having both my mom and my dad there was the fact that I got a positive male role model. I was able to have two parents in my household that actually cared. I was actually able to have two parents in my household that that wanted the best for me, that tried everything that they could to keep me away from gangs. And the reason why I bring that up is because in the inner cities, a lot of people don't have that advantage. A lot of people grow up in a situation where they don't have their dad around. And normally what that does is that forces the mom to work, a full-time job, plus a part-time job or two full-time jobs. And it basically means the kids get to run amok and not have anybody there. So I attest a lot of that to having both parents there in the house. And because they were both there, because they were both from Guatemala and they had seen family members going to drugs and gangs and stuff like that, they always kept us very distracted. They were very strict. We had to come home right after school. We couldn't hang out. There wasn't anything like if we weren't playing sports, that was it. And if we were playing sports, we literally had to come home right after practice was done because they weren't going to allow anything else to come in and kind of sway us in that direction. So a big, big, big shout out to my parents, to having conscious parents that knew that if they didn't particularly keep me in line, I would have more than likely fell into that world.
That is incredibly self-aware to understand that today. I'm sure you didn't always phrase it that way, or did you? Like, when did it become evident to you that this is why I am upper lower class? This is why I might actually have a chance to get out.
I didn't realize that till we moved to Phoenix, Arizona. When I lived in Los Angeles, everybody around us was so broke, so ghetto, and we were proud of being ghetto. Mm-hmm. We have a term called ghetto fabulous, and that's when you are riding in a 1985 Toyota with brand new spinning rims and using your fucking food stamp card to buy food. Like we took it as a source of pride. It was really a fucked up mentality that you just don't understand till you're kind of away from that. And my mentor has this saying that says a fish doesn't realize it lives in water until you pull it out. Mm. So I didn't realize how bad and toxic that whole situation was until I actually moved to Phoenix, Arizona. Now, mind you, when I moved to Phoenix, Arizona, I moved to the west side in a neighborhood called Maryville, which is considered the hood. But Phoenix version of the hood versus LA's version of the hood, two completely different animals, I remember the first time that I got here in Phoenix, my parents had just got the U-Haul truck in. My dad was kind of more of the, hey, get the hell out of my way because you're only going to slow me down type of person. So he decided to, hey, get your bike, go ride the neighborhood, go get to know the neighborhood, leave me alone while I take out the boxes. And I remember driving down the street and getting freaked out because I could actually hear my wheels turn. I had never been in a place so quiet that I can actually hear my wheels turn. So at that point, in high school was when I started realizing, hey, you know what? The people that have a dad available, they tend to do a little bit better than people that just have a mom available. And the people that have a dad that actually gives a crap and is actually a good role model, those people tend to have a chance.
Mm.
So that's when I started seeing, like, you know what, I can do something different. I don't have to be like all of my friends, because all of my friends either had no dad or had a piece of crap dad. There was, just these loser guys that were not working, basically living off the mom. The mom would be working, getting Section 8 or whatever, and the guy's just there at home, getting drunk, getting high all day, not doing anything. So once I realized that I had it a little bit different with my parents, I said, you know what? There's a lot of people that have it worse than I do. Yes, I may be living in the hood. Yes, I may be living in the ghetto. Yes, I may be living below the poverty line. But at least I have a dad who cares, who is there, who goes out of his way to teach me lessons and say, hey, you know what, son? I don't care what you are. I don't care what you do. I just want you to be the best at it. And the only thing that I ask from you is to be better than I do. Whatever I achieve in my life, just do a little bit better, at least. That's the only thing that I ask from you. When I would go to my friend's house and I would hear their dad talk to them, you dumb motherfucker, blah, 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 why didn't you take out the trash? And like literally belittling them, where my dad, on the other hand, was kind of like, hey, man, whatever you want to do, you can do. So it was right about the age of, I want to say 16, 18-ish when I started realizing, hey, man, I actually have an opportunity here.
I just can't even like express how, and I think there are probably a lot of people who are listening to this right now understand how important it is of what you just said, and just having that positive male role model in your life, especially for a boy who's trying to grow up, and how important that is. I remember when the first thing you said when I asked you to tell everybody who you are, you started mentioning all these things, who you are, like you ticked them off one at a time. And I think it was the very first thing you mentioned was father.
That is correct.
And I'm surely that was intentional too. Just talk about that. Because I thought we're going to get to the real estate, guys. I think that the real estate's there. But this is the kind of stuff where I really feel like this is a megaphone, and this episode and this microphone that I'm talking into, the one you're talking into, can really start to help certain people. Like, I didn't really have a positive, male role model in my life ever, until I was like 30, so, and that affected me in a major way. And just the fact that you had that, and the fact that you are so aware of it at such a young age, that you understood the importance of it. That is it's the most important thing to you. I'm father. That's the first thing on my list.
Well, you have to consider that when you bring a child into this world, they don't have a choice. You had a choice. You chose to have sex without a condom. Your woman had a choice. She chose to keep the baby. She chose to not have an abortion, or she chose not to give it up for adoption. She made those choices. You guys, even if you're not prepared and you're bullshitting yourself and, oh, we're going to figure it out, honey, you still had a choice. If your life sucks because of that, that was your choice. However, kids, they don't have a choice. They're just born. And unfortunately, kids don't understand what's going on. So I'm gonna be very open with you guys, and I promise you that we will get into real estate. But I want to reiterate what Brayand said. This is the stuff that separates happiness from non-happiness. A lot of people are very focused on, I want to get into real estate because I hear that you can make a lot of money in $20,000, $30,000, $50,000 pops. That's amazing. However, this right here, this is what real life is about, and this is honestly what always translated to real estate. So recently, I have a 1-year-old son. He was not supposed to be here. Me and his mom are not together specifically because he is here. Because we had sat and we talked like adults, and we said, hey, I don't want any kids. You don't want any kids. I'm going to go get a vasectomy. You're on birth control. If something were to happen, here's our plan. And we went that, and it didn't happen that way. Initially, I was very upset, and I was like, I'm not going to be forced to be a dad. Until I really started thinking about it, and the universe started putting all these people in front of me that grew up without fathers, especially boys. And I started recognizing, and I'm like, you know what? There's nothing, I can run into this kid at the age of 18. There's nothing that I could tell him, hey, your mom tricked me, your mom lied to me, your mom betrayed me, your mom said this, and then she did that. Nothing that I could say that would make him understand why I wasn't there. Because he's an individual, and he's going to be making his own choices. So I take fatherhood very, very seriously. I have 2 older kids. older than my baby, and then I have my baby. And one of the things that I do is I take it very seriously. If one of them were to run into the room right now, I wouldn't say, oh, fuck off, Dad's busy. I would get them, I would sit them on my lap, and I'm like, Dad's doing an interview. Why don't you sit down and do the interview with Dad? Because I understand how very vital it is. As human beings, one of the things that drives us more than anything, and most of the time drives us crazy, but drives us to do stuff, is our parents' approval. Wanting to have our parents' approval. And the reality is that as adults, we're nothing more than grown-ass kids. We're nothing more than grown-ass kids. I met you at a mastermind group. It was a one-day mastermind group, and I walked in with my stuffed monkey. Because I'm nothing more than a grown-ass kid. I just don't try to hide it like most adults do. And as grown-ass kids, we make all these decisions that are smart decisions, when in reality they're just emotional reactions for something that happened to us when we were children, normally having to do with our parents. So being able to have my dad, being able to see the difference between my friends who didn't have a dad versus my friends who did have a dad, I was like, you know what? When I have the opportunity, I'm going to be there. So I mentioned that I have 2 older kids. Literally, once my second daughter was born, because they came from the same mom, I said, you know what? I can't stand this lady. Like, I'm being with her just for the kids. I don't want to do that. That's one thing that I just don't want to do. I've seen people growing up who were just there for their kids, and they were miserable. Mm-hmm. And I said, I don't want to teach my kids this. So even though I'm not going to be with her, I'm still going to do as much as I can to be in my kid's life, because I want to help them out. Now, you were able to overcome not having a positive male father figure in your life.
Barely.
Yes. And that's my point. Most people are not. Most people cannot escape the mental pressures that comes. And, you know, you said it's important for a boy to have a man. I completely agree. But I think it's further more important for a woman to have a man. As a man, and probably you did before you got married, I'm sure that you might have dated some girls sometime that had daddy issues. Like, that's something that's not fun at all. That's something that you can have the most perfect, awesome, beautiful, amazing woman, and she's always going to be tortured by the fact that her daddy wasn't there, her daddy didn't care, her daddy mistreated her mom, her daddy kept on letting her down, and now she's looking to fill that things with male attention. Now, and I realized that as growing up, that's one of the things that happened to all the kids in my neighborhood. So as I said, most of the kids in my neighborhood did not have a dad, so they seek male attention. Most of the time, the older male attention in our neighborhoods were drug dealers, gangbangers. And this is another fucked up thing about growing up ghetto, growing up poor, is that your role models, the only people that you see making money, the only people that you see getting the beautiful women in the neighborhood, the only people that you see driving around with the nice cars and wearing the nice clothes, and you don't realize that they're living in the ghetto. You're just saying, oh man, this guy's balling. He's got the chain, he's got the women, he's got the car. They're normally drug dealers or gangbangers. So that's what we wanted to look up. That was our form of fatherly validation. Yeah. And like I said, luckily, kudos to you. You were able to surpass that. But there's a lot of people out there that don't. And that's one thing that I did not want to happen to my children, especially kids that didn't choose to be here.
So as we continue our conversation with psychologist BP, we're going to – no, you're right, man. I can't agree with you more. What does the person – I escaped it, but it was by pure – I think it was by pure chance. Honestly, a father figure type of person came into my life and taught me what work ethic was.
Yes. Taught
me what being a man was. He wasn't trying to teach it to me. He was just living his life, and I was following an example. The first positive male role model example I'd ever seen. I was 30 years old.
Yeah.
And I'd already been married. I'd already gone through the process. I'd already gotten married by the time that happened. What do you say to the person, the kid, or maybe the kid in his 20s, man in his 30s even, that never had that, is searching and we're talking about all this mindset stuff, and because the mind can play tricks on us, man. Our minds we can believe anything, so whatever we think we become, right? So what What do you say to this person? How do you treat this person to where they feel like they do have value and they can make money? I didn't even believe I could ever make money or be rich or have anything. I never believed any of that. I just wanted enough to get by. What do we say or what do we do to the person who just feels like, oh, that can never be me. I can never be wearing a shirt that says CEO, cash flow, things like that. I can't be that guy.
Well, two things I would say. So I want to address two different people on there. I want to address the kid, the 20-year-old, the 30-year-old who didn't grow up with a father figure. And then I want to address everybody else, somebody like me and you. But so the first group there, if you didn't grow up with a father figure, understand that has nothing to do with you. As human beings, the first thing that we like to do is internalize it. My daddy wasn't here because of X, Y, Z. And the reality is that you don't fucking know. By the way, whatever your mom told you is half the truth at best. Because she's coming from her. She's not going to be like, hey, son, back when I was a 20, I was a fucking slut. And I was just sleeping around with anybody. And I just happened to meet this guy at the bar and he knocked me up. And I already knew that he wasn't going to, I already knew from the beginning that she's not going to tell you that. So the information that you got up to this point has not been 100% true. Okay, so don't believe that stuff. Just don't even let it affect you. If it happened, it happened. It is what it is. Now, at this point, though, you get to make a choice. Do I continue living in this bullshit? Like I mentioned today, I had car issues. Do I continue festering over that? Oh, crap, this car. Oh, my God. Now I have to get an Uber to get to my meeting. Oh, my God, I have to go here. Dude, I had a mastermind meeting to go to this morning. Like I literally just pulled over. Oh, this sucks. Let me park my car here. Let me call an Uber. Let me make it to the meeting. Let me find a way to get back. I'll try to fix this problem. And that's it. So you have that issue. Now, you can continue living in the past and saying, well, my dad sucks. My dad was a piece of crap. He was never really there, and taking every single shot that you can to throw jabs at him. Or you can move forward and decide to find somebody who's doing something different. And just like Brian alluded to, this might not be somebody, hell, it might not even somebody that you know. You could follow somebody like me and say, hey, man, this guy here, like the way he's always posting everything, and he talks about his relationships, he talks about his kids, he talks about going on vacation, he talks about his personal development. Every once in a while, he'll talk about raising money for real estate and doing this or that in real estate, but he's always talking about all these things. I could relate to that guy. I came from the same area as that guy. And if you see somebody out there who is doing what you want to be, who's doing what you want to be doing, start following them, reach out to them. It is not outside of the realm of reality for you to say, hey, Brian, I heard you in a podcast. I think you're fucking amazing. I grew up without a dad. I'm really just looking for some guidance. Where can you point me to? The vast reality is that most people are going to say yes and are going to try to help you. Not everybody, but most people are going to say yes. Now, that's if you're in that area. Once again, understand that whatever happened in the past is not your fault. And understand, number two, that you have the decision to move forward. If you are your everyday Joe, if you're somebody like you're somebody like me, you're watching this podcast, you're like, hey, VP, I was in that situation and I'm not in that situation anymore. How can I give back? How can I help? Be the best version of yourself that you can be, and then be as open about it as you possibly can. One of the things that works the best when I do my keynote speaking, one of the things that works the best when I'm doing my coaching is when I'm 100% vulnerable with my students. When I tell them, hey, guys, this is what's going on. Hey, guys, I just booked a trip to the Philippines. This is my 5th year traveling, but all this money that's owed to me is not in my bank account. And now I don't even have any money to make it to LA to catch my flight. I don't know how I'm going to do this, guys, but I'm sure I'll figure it out. Being 100% open and just letting everybody know your process. Being open about your past. Don't be ashamed about it. If you grew up without a dad, it's okay. You don't have to talk about it exclusively, but bring it up. It's okay, because there's going to be other people that are sitting back. Now, you may be sitting in your couch, in your whatever podcast, listening to us, watching the video, saying, yeah, but you know what? I still work a 9 to 5. Like, I'm not real estate investing like Brian over there or BP. Like, I don't know what people can learn from me. Guys, wherever you're at right now, there's somebody who would literally trade their left arm to trade positions with you. Even if you're just working a regular 9 to 5, even if you're just barely scraping by, I promise you that there's people way worse than you. And I'll wrap up this particular subject by saying this. I first learned into personal development. I got introduced to personal development through networking event. I met this guy and I'm like, oh my God, this information is golden. The very first thing is, how can I teach this to my brother? Me and my brother grew up, we're 11 months apart. We basically shared a room pretty much all the way till we were adults. So I'm the closest with him that I am with anybody else. And my teacher said, you cannot teach him unless he wants to learn. And the best way that you can teach him is just by being the best version of yourself. Totally. He will reach out to you if he's interested and say, hey, man. So even though I wasn't at the level that I wanted to be, I was a little bit better off than him. And when I started doing a little bit better, he reached out to me and said, hey, what's up with that? What's up with that personal development stuff? Can I tell me a little bit more about it?
And that's a great lesson right there in and of itself, is that you have to meet people where they are. You can never try to bring someone along to where you are if they don't want to be there. Even though you may think that that's what's best for them, that's not the way to handle that for sure.
And relationships have that issue a lot.
Yeah.
The wife is like, I know what's best for my husband. I'm not going to tell him. I just know what's best for him. And unfortunately, that actually makes people react the opposite way, which now they get offended and they take it, they run the other way.
No doubt about it. So before we came on the show, I asked BP, what are you an expert at? And he said mindset and cash flow. Those are the two things you said you're the foremost expert on. So I want to spend the next part of this show talking about, we've talked a little bit about mindset. We'll get back to it here in a second because I got some specific things I want to ask you about that. But let's talk about cash flow for a second. What did you mean when you said you're an expert at cash flow?
I have become an expert in creating cash flow, not only for myself, but for my investors.
So what does that mean?
So basically, cash flow is a form of passive income, at least for me. So one of the things that I learned very early on in my business is that I wanted to be financially free. And in order to be financially free, that means that you have enough passive income, which is income that comes in without you working, to pay your bills, to pay your lifestyle, so you don't have to work. And if you talk to anybody in the regular world, anybody working a 9 to 5, hell, most of you guys listening right now, and I would ask you, hey, if there was a way that you can pay your bills that you have right now, you're not going to up your lifestyle, you're just going to continue what you have and pay the bills without having to go to work, would you do that? 100 out of 100 people will say yes. So anyway, cash flow. I realized that there's many different ways to create cash flow, but I was already in real estate. I had been wholesaling for a while. I had been fixing and flipping for a while. And one of the things that you hear when you get into real estate is most people get into real estate initially for the quick buck, the wholesale. The wholesaling is amazing, especially if you're working on a 9 to 5. It's the quickest, least amount of risk, least amount of money involved for you to make potentially large chunks of money. But the problem with wholesaling is that it's transactional business. You do a deal, the money gets spent. You do a deal, the money gets spent. You do a deal, the money gets spent. And I believe, oh my God, I think it was called Nelson's Law, if I'm not mistaken, that says that your lifestyle will continuously go up comparison to your income.
Yep.
So I was like, dude, why am I continuing to doing this? I need to start focus on cash flow. I need to start focusing on creating passive income. I'm over here selling all these properties, but I'm not ensuring that I have any money coming in. And one day I'm sitting at this office right here. This was probably like 5 years ago. My daughter comes in here and I'm like, baby, I'm busy. Daddy's on the phone. Daddy's making deals happen. And she's like, Daddy, I don't get to see you. We've been here the whole summer. So my older 2 kids don't live with me. They live out of town with their mom. I've been here the whole summer and you've just been working. And that broke my heart, man. That broke my heart. My baby girl basically being honest with me and telling me, Dad, I don't get to see you enough.
How old was she when she said that?
She's 13 now. So that was probably, she was about 6 or so, still cute little girl. She's a teenager now, so they're not as cute. But anyway, that's when I started realizing, and I said, you know what? I need to start focusing on ways to create cash flow. So I moved into rentals. I moved into single family rentals initially. And I was buying a single family house here, a single family house there, and keeping them for rental purposes. As I continued moving down that line, I said, you know what, this is awesome, but it's not as fast as I wanted to. If I'm doing 1 door, 2 doors, 3 doors, it's going to take a long time before I get to 100 doors, as opposed to moving into multifamily where I can then buy, big chunks, 20, 30, 40, 50 units, 100 units at a time without specifically having to do it that way. But it all came specifically from wanting me to free myself from the day-to-day. Fixing and flipping is a job.
Yep.
Realize this, guys. It's a high-paying job. It's a very rewarding job. It's a very when you tell people that you fix and flip houses, nobody says, "Oh, that sounds like it sucks." No. Everybody, regardless, athletes, politicians, yep, doctors, lawyers, models, and I know all these people. They all say, "Oh man, I would love to fix and flip a house." It's still a job, though. You still have to do it. You still have to show up. You still have to have a team in place. You still have to do X, Y, Z, or if not, you're not going to continue living that lifestyle that you're living.
Totally. No, I'm 100% agreement. My business model from day one was to wholesale and flip houses and take that money and buy cash flow and buy rentals. And I just can't stress how important that is. I think I've recently made a transition. I think you have too a little bit. You alluded to it a second ago that you're doing more notes now as well. I'm starting to transition that way in my own investing, doing more notes versus actual like acquisition of property, just because I think it's my personal opinion, just because of the market cycle that I think that we're in. I just think that it's a little bit better of a strategy for today. Talk about that. You mentioned notes earlier. What do you mean by that? And what are you doing specifically with notes today?
So where I met you a few months ago over at a mastermind with our buddy Ramon. I don't know if you remember, but I was sitting right next to Dan Satowski. Mm-hmm. And I did that on purpose, by the way. I've known Dan. Dan is part of one of my mastermind groups where I go, and it's not real estate related, but getting to talk to him, being in the industry, real estate, we got a chance to talk, and he was really, really hounding me about notes. Like, you should check out notes. And at that point, I had just got into multifamily, so I'm like, Dan, that sounds awesome, but I'm doing this multifamily stuff. Like, I want to own a bunch of freaking doors. Like, I just want to have the cash flow coming in, and I can just do whatever I want because every month. And he's like, yeah, you're going to realize that it's not all that it's cracked up to be. Actually, I'm at the point where I'm selling my multifamily. So I started kind of paying attention. But at that point, we're, as human beings, we're very stubborn. When we say we want to do something, we're going to do it. If our mom tells us that the stove is hot, we're still going to touch it just to see, because that's just the way that we are, right? So anyway, that was 2 years ago when I had that conversation with Dan. We've been in touch. I found out he was going to be at the mastermind. We were super excited. I saw him there. So I'm like, sit next to me, buddy. We'll hang out. We'll talk. As I'm talking with him, he's telling me, how's that multifamily stuff going on? I'm like, yeah, it's good, but we're having this issue and we're having that issue and we're having that issue. And he's like, yeah, well, that's why I transitioned into notes. He's like, I literally don't do anything. Now, between the time frame where I first met him to the time frame where I'm at now, I met another mentor of mine who was also heavily into notes. If I remember correctly, Dan owns about 650, and my other mentor owns about 450. And they're basically controlling these properties. They found a way to create cash flow without dealing with the headaches that come with doing multifamily. And one thing that I want to tell your audience here, one thing that I want you guys to keep in mind, understand this: not all cash flow is the same. Not all passive income is the same. I'm going to say something here. Some people might like it, some people might not, but it is what it is. A lot of times people like to pitch you multi-level marketing companies. If you like that, that's good. If you don't, that's fine too. The point that I'm trying to make is that multi-level marketing companies love to tell you, well, all you got to do is work for a little bit in the beginning, and then you get to ease off in the end because your downline is going. That's not 100% correct. Because if you're not on top of your downline helping them create a downline, all of a sudden your passive income starts drying up. If I'm not on top of my tenants, if I'm not on top of my property managers, if I'm not on top of people saying, hey, what happened with this guy? Did we kick out that guy? Did we collect rent with this person? What's going on here, and here? eventually that's going to lead into more problems, and my cash flow is going to start drying up because more expenses are going to be going out, less money is going to be coming in, less properties are going to be rented. So now I find myself having to be involved in that. The reason why I decided to move into notes is because the reason why I started cash flow particularly was to get passive income. Notes allow me to create passive income with a lot less of the headaches. So to answer your question specifically, we moved into the model that Dan Satowski has. So basically he creates the notes, then he sells the notes and services the notes, and he's just the bank in the middle. So where a lot of people buy properties in the Midwest or in the South because they're relatively inexpensive, they buy them, they put them the renter in place. Your ROI is ridiculously high, especially compared to any major metropolitan city for the most part, especially any cities in the coast and stuff like that. Like, dude, there's no way in hell your ROI is super, super low. So you start looking in those areas. A lot of people, what they did was they were doing lease options. However, once Dodd-Frank hit, that they were kind of limited to how many lease options they can do at one time, because you had to run it basically through like a loan. So Dan came up with the concept of, hey, if I'm going to do that, because he was doing a lot of lease options at the point, why don't I just sell them to investors? Now I'm not selling them to end owners. Now that doesn't qualify for Dodd-Frank. By the way, I'm still going to underwrite all my investors. So all my buyers, they're still going to go on the underwrite process. But who's more likely to A, have money in the bank, and B, have a better credit score than somebody who's looking to buy a rental property, like just buy it as a rental property, or somebody who's looking to do rent to own and hopefully buy that property in a few years because they have bad credit or whatever.
For sure.
So that's exactly what we're doing, is we're creating the notes and we're going to continue servicing the notes.
Yeah, and I just want to kind of clarify a point you just made there. It doesn't fall under the Dodd-Frank legislation because it's non-owner occupied.
Exactly.
And it's owner-occupant properties, which is capped at, I think, 3 per year. And the non-owner occupied, it's not regulated. You can do as many as you want. So I think
because at this point, he's just selling it to an investor.
Correct. Who does not live in the property.
Exactly.
Correct. So we just had Dan on our podcast literally 2 weeks ago, guys. If you did not listen to that podcast, go back and listen to the podcast I did with Dan Sadowski. It was absolutely mind-blowing, really great stuff. We've also done podcasts in the past with a guy named Scott Jelinek, who also does a very similar model. He calls it slow flipping properties. So go check those out. We'll link those up in the show notes. So BP, before we go, I want you to talk. I appreciate you coming on the show. A lot of great information for sure, especially for the person who might be struggling to get going, struggling to get started, maybe because his or her thinking, or just some stuff's going on internally, can't get past something, some sort of barrier. I know you mentioned the other thing that you're an expert in is mindset. Just kind of talk about what that means as well and how that specifically applies to your real estate business.
Sure. So let me start you guys. Dude, I'm going to give you guys the golden fucking nugget. And by the way, if you're passively listening, I would suggest you start actively listening at this point. It means grab a fucking pen and a pad and write what I'm about to say down. I'm sure I'm not just patting myself on the back. This is not my idea, by the way. I'm sharing what my mentors have taught me.
Hold on. This is the what kind of nugget is this?
This is the golden nugget. This is the active listening nugget. Because a lot of times people passive listen, they put this on in a podcast. They're probably working out. They're doing other stuff. They're hearing it, but they're not really paying attention. At this point, you guys really pay attention.
I thought that there was a word between golden and nugget.
There is always a word with me, and it usually starts with F.
All right, let's go. I want to hear it, man. We're actively listening, BP. We want to hear it.
Golden fucking nugget. All right, guys. So, guys, check this shit out. This is called the process of manifestation. The process of manifestation. And the process of manifestation simply states that your thoughts create your feelings. Your feelings create your actions, and your actions will eventually dictate your results. Let me say that once again for anybody taking notes. Your thoughts create your feelings. Your feelings create your actions, and your actions create your results. As a society, we are programmed to only think about our actions. When you go to these events, when you hear the podcast, they're just like, do this, take this action, take this. And guys, that is true. If you make 100 phone calls, you're guaranteed to get a deal. I'm not disagreeing with any of that. However, if you backtrack the process of manifestation, it all starts with your thoughts. Every single thing that has happened in your life has started with a thought. So I'm going to go and I'm going to use Mr. Joe Blow, real estate investor. Joe was working at a 9-to-5 job, doing all the stuff, and all of a sudden, just like me, he stood up late one night and he saw an infomercial where you can buy and sell real estate, flip houses with no money or no credit. That then started as a thought. Okay, oh, that sounds like a good idea. Oh, that sounds all right, whatever. Now, a thought is a thought. We all have millions of freaking thoughts throughout of our day that don't mean shit whatsoever. Hey, I'm hungry, I'm thirsty, I'm horny, I need to take a shit, I need to go this, I need to do that, whatever. These are all just thoughts. These are just like blah. However, the process of manifestation states that your thoughts lead to your feelings. So once you get a thought that is so powerful, all of a sudden that's going to create a feeling. So Mr. Joe over here got this thought in his head, and all of a sudden the thought started fucking with him. It started banging to him. Flip houses, no cash, no money, no cash, no money, no cash, no money, no cash, no money, no cash, no money. It started making him feel a type of way. It started making him feel a type of way until he said, you know what? I'm tired of feeling this way. I'm going to do something about it. I have to create an action. Because he took that action, he eventually got the result. Now, most people, as I said, they only want to focus on the action. Just take the action. Just do the action. Just do here. The reality is that it all starts with your thoughts. I remember being the action guy. I have 2 tattoos. One of them across my heart says hustle. The other one across my other side of my chest, it says grind. I was the grind and hustle guy. I work 100 hours. I work the next guy. I was that motherfucker. Until I started hanging around really rich people. And I started realizing that they're not like that. It's everybody trying to make it that's like that. Mm-hmm. And the one thing that rich people had that other people didn't was they thought differently. Their mindset was different. Their mindset was just so different. It was a peaceful kind of Zen-like just energy that suited from them. Where the grind hustle guys, they're always like, I got to get going. And it's never enough with them. It's never enough. The one thing that I alluded to at that mastermind when I met you, because we had kind of like a U shape and I was one of the last people that got the mic, is I'm like, dude, what the hell are you guys talking about? Everybody's over here trying to go bigger for what? Like, what's the reason for that? And I say this because it all alludes to your mindset. Mm-hmm. If you think a certain way, so for example, if you think that you want to have a Ferrari, and now you're like, I'm going to make the actions, whatever it takes to get a Ferrari. The reason why you're doing those actions is because a thought came into your mind at some point. You are now going to be holding yourself hostage to this thought, whatever it may be. Now, you can use it for your benefit or you can use it for your detriment. And the reality is that most people don't know how to handle their mind, so they're going to use it for their detriment. But your thoughts create your feelings create your actions, and your actions create your results. So when you start looking at it and you're like, okay, well, you know, before I take actions, I should control my emotions. Like when I've acted out of emotion, that hasn't worked out for me. How do I get emotional? Well, I get emotional when I start thinking about something. And then when I fester on a thought and I start holding about how this one particular person did me wrong, all of a sudden it starts growing bigger and bigger and bigger. But I'm looking at this and I'm researching and I'm like, okay, but if it all comes from your thoughts, where do your thoughts come from? Like, why do we think what we think? Why is it that we want the Ferraris? And then it all came back to programming. And a book that I would highly recommend to everybody, for anybody who doesn't follow me on social media, I would suggest that you do at Cashflow Creator. And you can see that every single Tuesday I'm at a mastermind meeting where we go over the book Secrets of the Millionaire Mind by T. Harv Eker. And he talks specifically about the things that I'm talking about here. And one of the things that he talks about the most is programming, how we are programmed to think this way, how we are programmed. You know, every single one of us listening, you included, we all heard the same fucking bullshit. If you want money, you got to get a job. That is why we continue, even as high earners, we still continue working for our money. We continue trading our time and our effort for our money because that's what was programmed to us. Everybody told us. Your mom told you this. Your dad told you this. Your brothers and sisters, your uncles, your relatives, your teachers, your religious leaders, the guy down the block. Everybody said you have to work hard. You have to work hard. You have to work hard. So eventually that creates your thoughts where the only thing that you know how to think is you have to work hard. That starts making you feel a certain type of way, like, oh, I'm not working hard enough. I'm not knocking enough doors. I'm not calling enough people. Oh, my God, I'm not like so-and-so. And then that creates an action. Normally, when you start feeling that type of, oh, I'm not as bad as so-and-so, that normally creates, oh, you know what? I'm just not going to do nothing today. And then that eventually leads to a result. Now, I do want to make one last point here. And this is going back to feeling like shit because you think that you're not doing enough. This is a thought that was created by somebody else, not you, that is not real, because every single billionaire with a B that I have met does not work hard. They're very proud to be lazy, by the way. The other thing, though, is that I want you guys to understand the Gary Vaynerchuks, the Grant Cardones, these type of people, these motherfuckers are freaks of nature. That's not your average person. That's not your average man. The type of person that likes to work 20 hours a day, that's not normal. You know, these people may be like that, and you might like to compare yourself to them, like, oh, I don't work as hard as them guy, I don't do as much as this guy. Understand that they're not the average. They're not the normal. And you have to understand that it all starts with your mind. So when you start figuring out why you want to be a real estate investor, why it's important for you to create cash flow, why you want to make it where you work that least amount, you'll end up learning that it's not about the money. It's actually about your time, your energy, your family, your wife, your happiness, way, way more than it is about the money.
Couldn't have said it better. I couldn't have said it better. That's awesome stuff, man. And I think that a lot of times all of us do. We get caught up in the trap. We get caught up in buying into a thought and not taking captive these thoughts. And I couldn't even agree with you more.
This is why you have to be extra cautious. You know, whenever you have a negative thought come in your head, catch it as quick as possible and then move on to the next thing. As I said, guys, in the beginning of this show, I said, I create my own reality. I could have held on to the thought of, oh man, my tire's flat. This is bullshit. Oh my God, this is messing up my whole day. Oh my God, I'm an hour late to my mastermind meeting. Oh my God. And I could have continued holding on to it, but I understand the process of manifestation. I understand that thought would eventually lead to feelings that would eventually lead to actions that would eventually dictate my results.
And to get to this point, BP, like this does not happen overnight. Like this is something I've been working on for years. Mm-hmm. And it starts to get to the point to where eventually it takes practice, but it starts to get to the point to where when something does happen negatively to you, we've all heard like it's not what happens to you, it's how you react to it, right? Mm-hmm. So it's when something happens, I take a deep breath. And I start to think about like, why is this making me mad, or why is this making me feel this way? And like, I always put it 100% on me. Always put it on me because it's my choice. One of the very first things you said when we started this podcast was that story, and you mentioned happiness versus unhappiness. Mm-hmm. Like happiness versus you get to choose. This is a choice you get to make. You can choose to be happy in this unpleasant moment, or you can choose the unhappiness and be that negative person. Oh, woe is me. This is always going to happen to me, and speak these things. And when you speak them, by the way, they are true when you speak.
Yeah, of course. And they, once again, because they become a thought, those thoughts end up creating emotion, and that emotion ends up dictating your action. So if I would have continued festering on that, I would have been pissed. I would have been like, you know what, Brian, I'm not going to do the show today. I'm not in the mood for it. This is bullshit. Then I'm going to be mad. Damn tired, man. It's all messed up. Because of that, I wasn't able to do the podcast. Because of that, I was late to this. And all these excuses continue piling up until they make it into such a big, big thing, where if you just catch it from the beginning. Yep. And this is where I want to tell you guys to be very mindful of your thoughts, extremely mindful of your thoughts, especially when things don't go right. And I guarantee you, my friend told me, higher level, higher devil. Like the more that you go up, the bigger your problems are going to be. Your problems are not going to disappear once you start wholesaling. Your problems are not going to disappear once you start fixing and flipping. Your problems are not going to disappear once you start raising money from investors and millions of dollars to buy cash flow. Like they don't disappear. Actually, in reality, they get bigger. So you have to become that person. And this is one thing that my mentor taught me, is that it's not about what you achieve. It's about the person that you become. And becoming a person that is not shooken by anything. When you're a level 2 person and you have a level 3 problem, it seems impossible. When you're a level 7 person and you have a level 3 problem, that's a Tuesday. It's just how you look at it.
Brayand Ponciano, BP, appreciate you, man. I can't thank you enough for coming on the show. As you mentioned a couple of times, met you at a mastermind, and it was very evident at that moment I needed to get you on our show, and we've connected a little bit since then. And I can't wait to, for the next mastermind that rolls around, or for the next time I get to spend some time with you, man. I really do appreciate you coming on the show and dropping some golden effing nugget on our crowd here. Tell everybody, BP, tell everybody how they can get in touch with you if they want to reach out to you.
Sure. So, you can get a hold of me on Instagram. I'm always hitting my 5,000 friend limit on Facebook, so I just stopped sending people there. Find me on Instagram at Cashflow Creator. As I said, I post everything there. It's spelled out just like it sounds, Cashflow Creator. I have everything there, including my stories, where actually if you follow me today on my stories, you'll see that I went to my mastermind group. Every single Tuesday I put stuff there, but I just basically share my life. I decided to be open with everybody because I want people to be like, hey, is this guy drinking alcohol while doing a podcast? Is that a weed pen? Yeah, it is, guys. And here's the reason why I'm very open about it, because I don't want you to feel less than if that's you. I want you to understand. So, Brian, you're going to get a kick out of this. I spoke at a place in Miami. That's where I met you, in Miami. And then I flew to freaking Dallas to speak at a different event right after that. And this girl came up to me and she's like, I just need to thank you because I didn't think that I was professional enough to be a real estate investor. But after hearing you talk, I know that even I can be a real estate investor. And I said, yes, thank you for that. So anyway, at Cashflow Creators, where you can find me. You can also check out my page, AZ Flip Guy. So we do have a podcast, which we're scheduling to have you on here, Brian. It's called Flipping Fridays.
Let's do it, baby.
I'll have to connect you with my VA, and he'll put you on the schedule there. But anyway, it's called Flipping Fridays. You can find us on iTunes. You can find us on Podbean or wherever else you get your podcast there. And basically, we've gone over every single aspect of real estate, from just getting started to raising millions of dollars. My last 2 multifamily deals, I have actually shown through the Flipping Friday show every single step, from the day that I got the deal to analyzing the deal to underwriting the deal to actually doing live walkthroughs at the properties, people seeing the stuff that we're seeing, how we're looking at it. So we're an open book when it comes to that. So you can find us. You can find me at the AZ Flip Guys, or you can find me on my Instagram handle at Cashflow Creator.
Awesome stuff, man. We're going to bleep out the part with the weed pen, though.
Okay.
Just kidding.
I'm in Arizona, and I have my medical card, so it's legal.
Guys, hit the subscribe button if this was awesome stuff. I know it was for you guys. Incredible stuff. I can't thank you enough, BP, for coming on the show. And before we go, I do want to mention, guys, if you're watching on YouTube, you can see it in my background. My book has been on Amazon for almost a year. I have less than 300 copies left on Amazon. It's $8. If you have not gotten this book, just search for my name on Amazon and go get it. When it's out, when it runs out, it runs out. My new book comes out in January 2020. So you definitely want to check this one out before it goes away. It's called Nothing's for Sale: How to Become the Local Real Estate Authority in Your Market. So definitely go check that out. We love you guys so much. Thank you so much for listening, and hit the subscribe button. We'll see you next week.